Welcome to The Explainer. We are jumping straight in today because we're looking at one of the absolute most fascinating historical subversions in all of sports. We're going to put two vastly different eras side by side. On one hand, you have the gritty, wildly unpredictable past of the World Cup, and on the other, the hyper-calculated, completely optimized future of the 2026 tournament. We're going to explore how the very concept of a team has fundamentally transformed over the decades. So it brings us to this really critical question. Can a team actually win without their absolute best player? Think about the highly optimized landscape of 2026 for a second. We've got record numbers of teams, massive global audiences, and literally everything is measured. In today's incredibly engineered systems, a single injury to a megastar, imagine an Argentina without Lionel Messi or France losing Kylian Mbappe, that could end a national dream instantly. The whole machine might just break down. But has it always been this fragile? Okay, let's dive into this. In the modern reality of 2026, just one injured cog can completely ruin an entire tactical system. But let's rewind a bit to 1962. During that tournament, Brazil suffered what honestly should have been a devastating, dream-ending blow. They lost Pele, the undisputed greatest player in the world, the teenage wonder kid who had just led them to glory in 1958, out with an injury early in the tournament. By modern logic, Brazil's campaign should have completely collapsed right then and there. But the startling twist? They won the whole thing anyway. Part 1, 1962. Flair survives the chaos. To understand exactly how Brazil achieved this absolute masterpiece of a victory without their main star, we really have to look at the world they were playing in. It was just a completely different game back then. 3-1. Imagine the visceral, absolute joy of this moment. The crowd is just erupting. The players are ecstatic. You can hear the classic high-energy commentary now. Yeah, boy, a fabulous strike, ferociously struck. Brazil defeats Czechoslovakia 3-1 in the final to take the gold. Without Pelé, that Brazilian squad dug deep into their collective talent, proving that their remarkable freedom and creativity were never just reliant on one single man. And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep their roster really was. Vavá stepped up immensely. He became the very first player in history to score in consecutive World Cup finals, doing so in both 1958 and 1962. That is huge. By securing this victory, Brazil achieved back-to-back titles, cementing a consecutive win record that to this day they share only with Italy, who did it way back in the 1930s. They definitely weren't a one-man show, they were a collective force of nature. Part 2, the Battle of Santiago. Now, to truly appreciate the magnitude of Brazil winning on pure flair and teamwork, you have to understand the chaotic, almost lawless environment these players had to survive in. To paint that picture, let's look at an infamous 1962 group stage match between host nation Chile and Italy. The tone of this game was set immediately. The very first foul occurs just 13 seconds after kickoff. 13 seconds! By minute 4, Italy's Giorgio Farini is sent off. But get this, he refuses to leave. Minutes later, he literally has to be escorted off the pitch by armed police. This wasn't just a soccer match, it was an absolute brawl. The rules of engagement were just remarkably different back then. Punches and kicks are being thrown openly on the field. Chile's Lionel Sanchez actually breaks the nose of Italy's Humberto Maschio and receives absolutely zero punishment from the officials. Nothing. Later on, Sanchez punches Mario David. David retaliates, and he is the one who gets sent off. So Italy is left trying to play an international tournament match with only 9 men on the field. It remains historically considered one of the most violent World Cup tournaments ever held. The match referee himself later described the game with this exact quote, "Impossible to control." When you're playing in an era this violent, this incredibly raw, you can't rely on a delicate, highly optimized tactical system. The game relied entirely on survival, raw flair, and individual miracles. And that is a crucible Brazil had to navigate without their best player. Part 3, 2026, the age of optimization. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the staggering technological contrast between these two eras. In 1962, you had unnoticed fouls, broken noses, and armed police right on the pitch. Fast forward to 2026, and players are monitored by dozens of cameras. We have automatic VAR, video assistant referee, reviewing every single frame of action. The crazy twist here is that almost every foul that went entirely unnoticed in 1962 would trigger an automatic video review today. those legendary matches would look completely different and likely end in mass disqualifications under modern officiating. Because that old-school chaos has been removed by technology, the game has changed fundamentally. Raw flair has basically been replaced by a tactical obsession with data. Teams today are heavily monitoring pressing intensity, mapping out complex passing networks using advanced analytics, measuring exact sprint frequencies, and calculating recovery cycles to ensure peak physical performance. Every single player, no matter how famous they are, is a highly monitored, meticulously tracked cog in a massive machine. And the scale of the optimization totally matches the massive scale of the tournament itself. In the early eras, like 1930, you had just 13 teams taking long, arduous ship journeys with barely any international data available, playing for a very limited media audience. In 2026, we're talking about a record 48 teams. Analysts study tens of thousands of actions using AI-assisted scouting long before the tournament even begins, all of it broadcast to billions of viewers. It is the ultimate realization of a global data-driven mega event.
Part 4. The System over the Star.
Which brings us to our conclusion, pulling these two incredibly contrasting eras together to answer our initial question. It's really a debate of beauty versus efficiency. Many analysts today believe that the players in the 2026 tournament are physically bulletproof and tactically superior to anyone from the past. But while they have that peak physical output, there's a persistent belief that they lack the unpredictable individual beauty and remarkable freedom of that 62 Brazilian squad. Efficiency and beauty, it turns out, aren't always the same thing. So we arrive at this powerful summary. Back in 1962, when the greatest player in the world went down in a tournament completely defined by chaos, flair, and collective creativity, stepped up and saved the day. In 2026, the data, the analytics, and the highly optimized systems are all explicitly designed to prevent the need for a miracle in the first place. But it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to walk away with. By engineering a game so incredibly efficient that it never requires a miracle to win, has modern football sacrificed the very magic that made us fall in love with it to begin with? Think about that next time you watch a match. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.